I'm Haley Taylor, and you're listening to the Rough Draft Diaries. This week on the Rough Draft Diaries, you'll meet Clifford Murphy. Now, if you're already a part of the Toledo jazz community, I'm sure you recognize that name. But if you're not, get ready to meet one of Toledo's jazz icons.
Clifford T for Thomas Murphy.
Clifford is mainly known for two different things. One would be his talent, playing a particular instrument, and the other would be where he played that particular instrument. Clifford played the bass in a band called the Murphys, and he often played at a jazz cafe, one that he owned called Murphy's Place. There are two very important aspects in Murphy's career, and we'll get to both of them. But first, let's focus on the bass. How did Clifford begin to play this instrument?
That really didn't happen until after I left the Korean War. I always wanted to play bass, and my aunt, she wanted me to be a musician. My father was a reverend, or preacher, and he wanted me to be a preacher. And she says, hell no. She says, I want him to be a musician. And she used to say to me, Clifford, play the saxophone. That is the sexiest instrument, that, which I hated. Because all I wanted to do was just play the bass, because all of my life, I grew up just thinking and singing the bass parts.
Clifford was about 20 years old when he returned to Toledo from the Korean War. Toledo is also an important character in this story. It was the place Cliff was born and raised, also the place he bought his first bass.
Went downtown with my mom to get a new wardrobe, and the bus stopped in front of the music store, and there was this bass in the window. It said, come and get me, come and get me. I got off the bus, went inside and bought everything that goes with the bass. Bow, cover, the strings, extra strings, everything. We got outside the music store. My mom says, now how are we going to get this home? I said, I'm going to walk it home. And I was so proud, because I had paid cash for the instrument and didn't owe anybody a dime. The people in the neighborhood were coming out on their porches and said, what is that?
Along with his bass, Clifford also bought, in his own words, a couple of books that taught him how to correctly hold the bass, how to perform simple and complex rhythms, different fingering patterns. The list goes on and on. The point I'm trying to make is that Cliff is self-taught. He didn't have a teacher or take formal lessons. But Clifford found he did have an advantage in playing this particular instrument.
Part of it was a natural feeling, because you need a certain feeling before you can play rhythm, You have to have that feeling embedded inside of you, because that's what comes out when you play the bass. So I had that. That was a natural feel. I probably got that from church.
So Clifford practiced, and he started to develop his own style. He played often in his father's church, but his first professional gig came to him by accident.
The way I got into that was that the regular bass player had too many children, and he wasn't paying support for them. And the cops come to arrest him, and he went out the back window and caught a bus and went to St. Louis. And they knew I was beginning to play bass, so he called me up to play bass. That was my first introduction to playing professionally, The story goes on and on.
The story does go on and on. Clifford started traveling with his band, well, just a little bit at first. From Massachusetts, he returned to Toledo and was immediately offered a job at the Cuckoo Club. This was a nightclub that housed famous names like Duke Ellington and Phyllis Diller. It also housed America's best-known mob figures of the 1960s and 70s. Clifford's boss was Irving Slick Shapiro. He owned the nightclub and was instrumental in giving Clifford a chance to tour the United States and outside of it with his band.
Irv Shapiro called us in the office and called up long distance to Las Vegas. He says, I want these guys in playing Monday night at Caesar's Palace. And off we went and stayed there a month. And while we were there, we backed up Harry Belafonte and Eartha Kitt. There was a ton of people. We were backed up while we were there, and got called to go to Puerto Rico, the Bahamas, Florida, to all the big hotels we were frequent, you know.
Clifford was hitting it big, traveling all over the States, but it wouldn't be long before he returned to his hometown to start his own club. And that's where we'll begin this next episode of the Rough Draft Diaries, so make sure to listen in to part 2 in Clifford's story on the RDD. For now, I'm Haley Taylor, and thanks for listening to this episode of the Rough Draft Diaries.